Welcome, everyone. Hey there, Diana.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm under the weather today, so I'll just be hanging out in the background here.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to join before we get started. I still see people joining our waiting room. Perfect. It looks like we are having everyone join now. So let's give them about 3 more minutes and then we'll jump right on in. Now, while we wait, I did want to let everyone know that since we are meeting on Google Meets, you guys will have access to the chat function. If you didn't get a chance to submit any questions ahead of time, you can still do that at any time as I'm reviewing our QuickBooks Sync. Drop it in the comments. I do have Sandy and Diana here, so they will pull those questions and redirect them my way. And we'll spend some time getting some specific answers for you guys. All right, so let me get started by initiating my screen share. I'm just making sure that this is up for you guys. Awesome. All right. Well, let's dive in. Thank you all for joining. My name is Jackie. I've been with DesignFiles for 3 years. I'm part of the designer success team and speak with designers every day about the QuickBooks integration, how it works, how it's going to streamline your guys' financials. And today we're going to talk about some exciting updates that we've recently launched to our integration. Directing you guys to my screen share, I've jumped into my DesignFiles account so that way I'm able to provide you guys with some real life demos and answers to these specific questions that you guys may have. So when we're talking about DesignFiles and the integration that we offer, we're essentially talking about the online integration that you guys will find directly within your guys' settings. If you guys navigate over to the QuickBooks Sync option, you guys will find the ability to connect your QuickBooks account. Now, because it is an online integration, you would need to have the QuickBooks Online version for this. These settings, once they're established, will help you guys save time, reduce manual work, and streamline accounting with this integration. One of the first things that you guys will see when you guys come to this page is the ability to connect. You guys will notice I'm already connected, but on your guys' end, right up here, you will click on Connect to QuickBooks. And that's going to bring you guys into the QuickBooks interface where you guys will also log into QuickBooks and authorize that sync. Now, once you guys are connected to that QuickBooks integration, you're going to come right back to DesignFiles to set up these personal preferences in your account mappings, which should look like this. I'm going to scroll down just a tad here for you guys. Now, if we start with these personal preferences, you guys will see where you guys can customize the DesignFiles sync with QuickBooks with options to automatically sync invoices when they're submitted or paid, automatically sync purchase orders when they're submitted or paid, and then sync manually recorded invoice payments to QuickBooks, sync purchase order payments to QuickBooks as bills. Now, for purchase orders and what we're referencing here, you do have the flexibility to choose whether QuickBooks should create both a bill and a bill payment or just the bill. It's up to you guys. These personal preferences were part of our latest updates where we're giving you guys a little bit more control of managing when data flows to QuickBooks. Now, once we get into the Q&A, I'll be more than happy to answer some specific questions about this because these settings were really in place because designers wanted that flexibility, and this would vary by each of you guys. Now, let's talk about mapping accounts, which ensures that income and expenses are categorized correctly in QuickBooks. The first thing that you guys will see in the map is the ability to map product income. Now, in Design Files, I'm going to open a new tab for you guys here. We sync over invoices, and on an invoice, let's pop one open. Let's go right in here. The invoice itself has an item type. The item type is either a product or a service, as you guys are seeing here. Anytime a product is selected, that is our sync's kind of indication of this product needing to flow into a specific income account. Now, you can categorize these a little bit further if you guys utilize categories. You'll see that I've got my categories set up here. Now, if we're looking at the QuickBooks sync, you guys will see the ability to set up those categories within QuickBooks. Since this is a sub-account to the primary product income account, it's important to note that in here, you want to create the categories for product income. Sometimes I've seen designers that will put in here something like design fees. I've seen shipping expenses. One thing to know is that if you do include a category of that nature, when you run a report on QuickBooks, it's going to actually fall under product income. Services are really distinguished into a separate account. So if we're looking at service income here, you do want to map that into the appropriate service income account in QuickBooks. Now, hopefully here in the near future, we will allow you guys to create categories for these services as well for design fees, junior fees, anything like that. Now, when it comes to shipping income, anytime that we're seeing income here, it's more so referencing the data that's coming from an invoice. So if on your invoice, you've got any shipping costs noted, when this flows to QuickBooks, this is where the account that you guys are going to see that go to. Now, same thing with purchase orders. Purchase orders are another document that we sync over, and I'm going to get one of those opened up for you guys here. In a purchase order, any shipping charges on that purchase order will go up to the shipping cost. And here you'll notice the difference in verbiage to give you that clear indication of what's income versus a cost. If we reference that QuickBooks sync again, we have purchase order expenses going to an expense account, such as a cost of goods sold. And then directly underneath that, you guys will find the shipping cost. Again, this is being tied directly to the cost being synced to QuickBooks from that purchase order. Now, I often get a lot of questions about purchase orders and how they sync with our QuickBook integration. You now also have the ability to select a desired accounts payable. Now, you may be thinking, what's an accounts payable? Why is this one important? Your accounts payable is a liability account that tracks the money your business owes to vendors or suppliers for purchases made on credit, When you create a purchase order and later receive an invoice from your vendor, QuickBooks records it as a payable, ensuring that your expenses are accounted for properly. If you guys use retainers, you can map them to a specific liability account within QuickBooks. This is our latest update, and we're really excited about it. Now, previously, by default, the liabilities were syncing to DesignFiles liability suspense account, which is simply a placeholder now, because you now have the ability to select a different liability account that you may have pre-established with your bookkeeper or your accountant. Directly underneath the liability account here, you will see the option to map a payable bank account. This is where QuickBooks records bill payments made from your business account. And a payable credit card account is where QuickBooks tracks bill payments using a credit card. Now, just as a quick little recap, within this sync, we are syncing over invoices and purchase orders to QuickBooks. So the map in the categories here all ensure that the data coming from these two documents flows into the correct accounts, whether it's an income, a cost, or a liability account. The key here is selecting the right accounts to ensure that any payments going to vendors are recorded properly. Any income that's coming in is being reported correctly into your report, such as like a profit and loss or a summary by product. The QuickBooks integration itself is designed to automate your accounting, improve accuracy, and essentially just keeping everything organized. So again, by setting up these sync preferences and mapping your accounts correctly, will ensure that you guys have a smoother, stress-free workflow. Now, one thing that I did quickly want to touch on before we jump into some Q&A is the retainer update. This is new to a lot of you guys. We've recently rolled this out. If we go into a project, and let's go back to this one. Within the invoice tab, you will now, you guys have always had retainers. Retainers allow you guys to collect money up front for future jobs, products, services. These are held as a liability because you don't essentially want them to count as income just yet. It's actually recognized as income once you take a balance or the full balance from the retainer and apply it as a payment towards an invoice. Now, the way that this previously worked was that the retainer would flow to that DesignFiles liability suspense account. And when applied to an invoice, we were having to manually adjust the balance in that liability account. Good news, all of that extra work has now been removed with this update. You guys can now expect retainers to sync into the liability account of your choosing. And you guys will also see that when a retainer is paid against an invoice, that liability account is reduced. Now, I want to jump over to QuickBooks to show you guys exactly what that looks like. I have a retainer here. And if I click on the three dots and click View on QuickBooks, it's going to allow me to see that retainer payment that I held. Now, I have my retainer syncing to my DesignFiles liability suspense account. So if we head over to QuickBooks, and I go into, let's go into my chart of accounts here. And let's pull up that liability. Perfect, it's right on top. So I'm gonna go ahead and just view the register here. Now, when I'm looking at this register for my liability account, I'm able to see the balance of that initial retainer that I took. Now, I've already gone ahead and I've taken a portion of that retainer that I'm holding and I've applied it towards an invoice in DesignFiles, which is this one here. We're going to get that open to allow you guys to see this. On this invoice, I have a combination of services and products. I'm also have requested a 50% deposit, which I simply pulled payment from that existing retainer for $1,909. When I look at my register here, we're noticing that the liability account was decreased by that balance, and it's giving me an updated total right up here. Now, with retainers, the way that it works is that if a partial payment is taken from that retainer, the balance will update. We've also ensured that if the full balance of that retainer was applied towards an invoice, the invoice in DesignFiles will sync to QuickBooks. It will include a line item added at the bottom with the negative amount reflecting the retainer. If that invoice is fully paid with the retainer, the QuickBooks invoice will be 0 and marked as deposited. The applied amount will also be reduced on this liability account that we're looking at. Now, one addition to this, and let's go back to this invoice, is the naming configuration that we've updated. Let's take a look at the invoice in QuickBooks. We'll give that there a second to load. And then we're going to scroll down to the bottom, and we're going to locate that line item that was added. So retainer payments are now grouped by project as a single item in QuickBooks to make sure everything's organized, but we've also improved the naming and how this appears in QuickBooks to make tracking even easier. You guys will notice here, my retainer, it's being noted as the retainer, and it's also including my project name. Because that liability account may be holding several retainers, this naming convention is going to make sure that you guys can track these a little bit more easy. Now, now that we've covered that, I want to open up the Q&A and see if anyone has specific questions around invoices, purchase orders, the QuickBooks sync, and how you would manage it. So feel free to raise your hand and drop your questions in the chat. I'm going to have Dayana and Sandy take a look at those, and we'll start answering some questions.
It looks like we have a few questions in the Q&A.
Perfect.
First one is, my POs don't automatically populate the shipping from my invoices. Is there a way to have that happen?
So my first question would be, are you seeing that purchase order in QuickBooks? Because I've spoken to designers who want to sync their purchase orders, and they're syncing, and they're either getting a message back letting them know that purchase orders are not enabled. QuickBooks Online Plus has the purchase order option. Any plan underneath that does not have the purchase order option, and you would need to upgrade. If you are already syncing purchase orders over, and let's pull one up, and it hits QuickBooks. Let's give this a second here to load, and then we'll dive in. You're going to see all of the details come through. So right in here, I've opened up my purchase order. Now, if I'm referencing back the purchase order that I had in DesignFiles, let's go right in here. I have shipping costs right in here. I did not include one, so let's just type in $100. And then I'm going to save this so that way we can re-trigger that sync. And then once that's in sync, I'm going to pop that back open. Here we go. Now, you guys will notice that I went back into my DesignFiles invoice and inputted the shipping cost on the top right-hand corner. I did resync it just so that we can see that reflect, and you will see the shipping cost as a line item within QuickBooks, just like this one here. And I hope that answered your question. If you have a follow-up, please drop it in the chat. Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
The next question is, have you seen clients leave the maps to the built-in suspense accounts and then do journal entries in QBO, get the amounts in the right place?
You know, I have seen this. However, I would recommend setting up your settings to the accounts that you want this to. When you initiate the QuickBooks sync, it does default to some placeholder accounts. And you'll know that it's a placeholder account because it will actually say, let's see if I can find one here, Design Files Product Suspense Account, Design Files Service. You guys can absolutely leave it there. Just kind of recategorizing will help you guys understand what is being held within that. So sales of product income is good. I've seen designers that just simply have within their chart of accounts a sales account. So it's totally possible. The journal entries, again, if you're familiar with QuickBooks, yes, this can totally be done. But this integration, if used properly, will save you time and it will eliminate the need for those journal entries. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, it's possible. I would recommend setting up a different chart of accounts for each of these. Just to save a little bit of time. I think that's all of our goals here.
Okay, and for anyone who's raising their hands, if you can pop your question in the chat or the Q&A, that would help us just go down the list of questions. We do have a couple of questions about syncing POs. Would you select bill or bill pay if the bill hasn't been paid? Or what is the difference between bill only?
Yep. So the difference between these options here is, for one, I have simply my bill being created. Now, the reason why we have the bill payment option is because within a purchase order in DesignFiles, you can record a payment. So we're going to pop that one open and we're going to go over to a purchase order and we're going to open this one up. Now, this purchase order is already syncing to QuickBooks. I have the setting turned on so that way once it hits QuickBooks, that bill is created. Now, I have not recorded a payment just yet. However, I can. So if I've already paid my vendor, let's just say on my credit card, and I record it within DesignFiles, when this hits QuickBooks, it's also going to mark that bill in QuickBooks as paid. So that's going to be the key differences there. Some designers don't record the payment in the purchase order in DesignFiles, and that's also fine. When you select the bill option only, that bill will remain open on the QuickBook end, and then you can grab, if let's say it's from a credit card, you can pull from the statement and match that, and it will close it. Mark it as paid. Perfect. And Kim, I see that you had that initial question and it looks like you have a follow-up regarding retainers tracked by project. We'd still need to filter by project in QBO to get a specific project total. Yes. If you want to view a project totals for a specific project, you can run that report in QuickBooks. And you just simply apply a few filters so that way you can run it by customer or by project. Okay, another follow-up from Kim. So it depends on how you want to manage your accounts payables. Yes, I believe this is referencing back the bill and the bill payment options. It does depend on how you want to manage that. And for that reason, we included those personal preferences because every designer works a little bit differently. So you can customize this, Kim, to kind of fit your specific workflow or how you would want to manage those bills and bill payments. I'm going to mark that one there as complete. Amanda does have a question. Any plans to allow expense mapping to multiple cost of goods sold accounts? Like a cost of goods sold for windows, fabric, or do you have to assign by product in QuickBooks, or can in DF? Okay, so the cost of goods sold, right down here, right now, the only category feature that we have enabled is for product income. So it looks like you're wanting to break down your cost of goods sold a little bit further. It is something that we've discussed. It's not currently available. We may need to do a little bit more research and connect with some of the bookkeepers and accountants that we've partnered with to see how they would suggest handling that. For right now, there's one cost of goods sold option for expenses. How do you pass through costs to get categorized? Pass through costs to get categorized. I may need a little bit more information on that one. If you guys want to just kind of clarify and drop that back in the Q&A, that would be appreciated, and I'll loop back around. We did get a question about any plans for adding more budget management tools. I'm assuming that this is within DesignFiles. A lot of our designers will use some budget management tools within QuickBooks. Internally, we have discussed this, and again, hoping that it will be available soon. Right now, we do not have budget management or reports that will allow you to just kind of see overall profitability. That's where QuickBooks steps in and is a great platform for you guys to run some advanced reports based on customer or by project. Perfect. Can an invoice payment be marked as deposited versus paid and have it flow through QuickBooks? Okay. Amanda, deposited versus paid. So in DesignFiles, let's head back over here to an invoice. So there's 3 key statuses that will sync over to QuickBooks. That would be submitted, paid, and partially paid. Deposited is not an option right now. Anytime there's a payment applied, whether it's fully paid or partially paid, you can initiate the sync manually, or again, that's kind of where your personal preferences also kick in. You may have it already enabled to sync when it's fully submitted. Submitted or fully paid. There's not a deposited option at the moment, but we can always explore that. Perfect. This is a great question. So, Joanne, thank you so much for coming back in and clarifying. How do you pass through costs, or I'm sorry, how do pass-through costs get categorized? For example, if I pay for tips and the client needs to reimburse me, and I put that in a miscellaneous invoice. On an invoice within DesignFiles, the 2 item types that we offer are product or service. I have seen designers that will input a manual line item for reimbursements, and they'll mark that as a service. Now, here's what happens. When this hits QuickBooks, it's going to land in the income account for your service revenue. For things such as reimbursement, I would recommend doing this in QuickBooks so that way you can categorize that into like a reimbursement or an expense account. That's not really handled within DesignFiles at the moment. Okay. And I'm seeing some additional requests to add more cost of goods sold for expenses. It looks like that would be very helpful to match up some income for you guys. Awesome. All right, it looks like we have one other question here. So if you post payments against the purchase order in DesignFiles and you sync both payments and billing, will this show up in your bank reconciliation and be matched up? Yes, QuickBooks has the automated match feature, which recognizes any time an invoice, or I guess I should say any unpaid balance is in QuickBooks, it will automatically look through your linked bank account and attempt to match those. I have found it to be very great. You can enable and disable that. If that is enabled, you will see it suggest that as a match so that way you can quickly confirm. So yeah, give it a shot and let me know how that goes for you. Perfect. All right. If you guys have some follow-up questions, additional questions, drop it in the Q&A. I want to jump over and peek at the pre-submitted form and see what questions were included there. Awesome. Okay, so we had a question come in prior to our meeting where a designer was asking, you know, if they already pay fees using QuickBooks, is there an additional fee from DesignFiles for integrating? The answer is no. There's no fee to integrate to QuickBooks from your DesignFiles account. The fees for QuickBooks, she may be referencing the fees to collect payment through their payment processor. We do work with the payment processor internally. We use Stripe, and they allow the clients to pay you via credit card and ACH bank transfer. There are fees associated with this one here. For credit cards, it's 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. The ACH bank transfer is 1.1% plus 30 cents per transaction. Depending on your state and if this is allowed, you can also push that processing fee onto the client so that way they're covering it and you're keeping more profit. Those are the only fees associated with our invoicing tool, which you guys will find directly underneath. If you guys have not set up your Stripe connection, you will also find that within your settings. It's free to set up. Stripe has been wonderful, and you would just simply come up to your settings and go into your payment options and connect directly from here. Is there a way to track shipping costs? We often don't know what they are until or after they've been shipped. I love this question because this one actually comes up quite a bit. The short answer is yes, you can track your shipping costs. We briefly covered it in the purchase order. Now, this is very common in the industry. Many times our designers don't know exactly what that cost is until after. So if you do need to make any adjustments, you can edit any of your documents and make the adjustment. The purchase order serves as your receipt for what you're paying as a cost to your vendor. So shipping costs here, by adding it in here, will ensure that you're able to track the shipping costs for projects, for customers, or as a whole for a specific time period. Just ensure that you're adding it into shipping costs. One last thing to note is that if you do make an update to any detail, when you save it, you're going to see it resync. You can also turn off the sync and turn it back on to do that hard refresh, but you will see after making the change that that document that it initiates the resync and it will update on the QuickBook end. Okay, there's another question that was pre-submitted ahead of time. If we purchase items for inventory to be used up the road, where does that money get posted to in QuickBooks? How do retainers and deposits get noted in both platforms? So we currently don't have an inventory management system within DesignFiles. You can manage that within QuickBooks. To answer the question about retainers and deposits and how those are noted in both platforms, I've noticed that when designers are managing both of these types of documents, there's some similarities. I mean, they both involve receiving money before work is performed or a product is delivered, but there are still some key differences in how they're typically used. The retainer is typically a fee paid upfront to reserve your services. It often implies ongoing work, very common for designers. In QuickBooks, a retainer is usually recorded as a client retainer liability or liability account because that work has not yet been completed. And it will remain a liability until you earn it or apply it towards an invoice. A deposit is a little bit different because it's a partial payment made in advance for a specific job, an order, or a project. It's also a liability at first because you haven't fulfilled the order yet. And it's typically recorded as a customer deposit or unearned revenue. But in both cases, once the work is done or the product is delivered, you recognize that as income by applying the retainer deposit to the final invoice. And I'm just going to go through the Q&A and see if we had any additional questions here. And then Sandy, if you had a few pinned that you want me to get through, let me know as well.
Yes, we did get a few more questions in the Q&A. The next one is, what are some best practices on sales tax reconciliation?
The sales tax reconciliation will all happen within the QuickBook end. On our software, if you go to the financial overview page here, you will see a breakdown. Now, many times, especially right now, it being tax season, designers have asked, how can I reference what I collected in DesignFiles for my sales tax versus what's in QuickBooks? The best way to do it, and what I would recommend, is creating a custom report for a specific time frame. I like to do it by month because I feel like I can work my way through QuickBooks and find, everything in a short period of time. But running the report here will allow you to see the sales tax collected on invoices. And you can cross-reference that with what's reporting on the QuickBook end. For designers that, are handling a lot of projects or their project is very invoice heavy, you may have quite a few of invoices here to reference. So this custom report will absolutely help you guys save time when cross-referencing the details. Can you remember the flow of money when it comes in from Stripe? Oh, that's a great question. So with Stripe, when a payment is submitted from your client on an invoice, the flow is actually very seamless. On the invoice, the status itself will automatically be marked as paid or partially paid, depending on the amount that your client has paid you. Either of those statuses, based on your preferences, may already trigger the sync, meaning this is already being recorded in QuickBooks. With QuickBooks automated match, Stripe is going to hit the bank transaction list and QuickBooks is going to match those. You may just need to go through and confirm. I believe you can disable that as well. But the flow is actually very seamless. What also happens is designers who push the processing fee on that invoice to the client will see that the deposit made from Stripe is the full invoice balance, making that match even easier. QuickBooks will recognize it, suggest it as a match. If you confirm it, boom, it's done. If you need to go back in and account for any processing fees, let's say this invoice came with, I don't know, $10 of processing fees. The payment will still be suggested within the QuickBook end. I may go in and add the difference of those $10 and categorize that difference as an expense for processing fees or bank fees, any of those expense accounts that I have pre-established in QuickBooks. I would make sure that that entire invoice is accounted for and I can close it out. So if you're not already using Stripe, I hope that you are, because that will streamline a lot more work, especially if you can push the processing fee to the client. It will eliminate one less step that you need to do in accounting for those fees. Someone's asking if QuickBooks has their own payment processor similar to Stripe. They're also asking if we're connected to DesignFiles and QuickBooks. Couldn't you use your current payment app that QuickBooks uses? Yes, some designers do this. If you guys do not choose to use Stripe, the payment processor that we're working with, what our designers are doing is on the invoice itself, down at the bottom, they're utilizing the notes section here to include or allow their client to see additional forms of payment, QuickBooks payment processor being one. When the invoice syncs to QuickBooks, you can click the three dots and view it. And on the right-hand side, QuickBooks allows for credit card, bank transfer, and I believe PayPal now. If you turn on the payment options, you will be able to grab the pay link and you can include it in the note section of your invoice right in here. I typically include a little bit of verbiage just for the client to know to click on that link. And once it's clicked, it redirects them to QuickBooks and they will see the different options: credit card, bank transfer, PayPal, whatever you've enabled for them, and they can submit payment. When they do this through QuickBooks payment processor, you're going to see a very similar thing happen. The invoice in QuickBooks is marked as paid. Now, within DesignFiles, it won't automatically update that status to paid, but you can come in and acknowledge that payment, and you can even send a receipt from DesignFiles. So yes, you can absolutely use QuickBooks payment processor if you wish. Let's go down. Is invoice report on a cash basis? So this would be dependent on your settings within QuickBooks, whether you're reporting on the cash or the accrual. Now, we did get one follow-up question as well. Where is a deposit on a sales invoice for product going in QuickBooks again? So let's go back to this invoice and let's view it in QuickBooks. View in QuickBooks. Now, I do have a deposit on this invoice being recorded. So here's what happens. If you record a deposit on any of your invoices, the invoice is going to hit QuickBooks. And directly underneath that, you will see any payments that have already been applied towards this. So in my case here, I still have a balance owing because I haven't fully closed out my invoice just yet. So keep that in mind when you guys are recording over deposits. If that outstanding balance is still remaining, it will not fully close. But that deposit from the invoice will flow through QuickBooks, and you can quickly reference it by locating that invoice, clicking the 3 dots, and clicking View on QuickBooks. Okay, and I'm catching up on some of the comments here. Thank you guys. There's a ton of Q&A coming through. Now, someone did ask, I use retainers to collect money for products and apply to product invoices. If I'm under budget and need to refund client retainers, how would I do that within the retainer itself? This is also a scenario that happens outside of outside of DesignFiles. Anything regarding refunding the client or credits, you would manage that within QuickBooks. And we do have some step-by-step guides that I will send over to you, Kelly, so that way you can see how you would manage that within QuickBooks. They have a ton of great resources that will walk you through this, and I'll make sure that I send that to you. Is there a list of bad characters not to use on an invoice that can cause an invoice or maybe POs not to sync? Yes. QuickBooks is very sensitive with the data that it collects. Right off the bat, what you would consider a bad character is really any like special characteristics, asterisks, parentheses. Sometimes QuickBooks does not really like that, or even a little tack. So keep that in mind. Text is usually pretty good. Not many character limits outside of like descriptions. If they're very long, you may see it shortened. But stay away from like those special characteristics like asterisks, parentheses within the ID number specifically, and in your product name as well. Perfect. Okay, it looks like you guys want that retainer document that I mentioned for refunds. I'll make sure we include that as one of the resources after our call. And so you guys know, we do have a ton of great help articles around this topic. If you guys go to your DesignFiles account and jump into that Learn section, under the Help Center, you can do a quick search for QuickBooks or any QuickBooks specific questions. One of the reports that I like to send to designers after speaking with them are the common error codes that you may come across within DesignFiles. I particularly really like this because our support team has gone through and created these help articles for you guys to see what the error code essentially means, what was the cause, and a resolution to it as well. So you guys can find those within the Help Center. You will also see a step-by-step guide on setting up those product categories, a guide on the retainers and the recent updates to that. This one does include some very detailed screenshots. So take a look at this one. This is the other one, how to resolve common QuickBooks sync errors. In this document, we've compiled them all. So if you come across any of these and want to know what the cause is and how to resolve it, this is going to be the article that I will send to you guys after this call. And of course, you know, sometimes we have very specific questions around a project or around a customer and how to handle specific billing questions. We're also going to follow up and send you guys our direct calendar link. Our designer success team speaks with designers daily. We're really well versed in the QuickBook integration that we offer. So if anyone is interested in scheduling a one-on-one call and going over specific scenarios that you guys come across, Sandy just dropped the link in the comments. Feel free to click on it. We have a ton of availability. You can get in as early as possibly today, even tomorrow. And we can spend that 30-minute session covering any of the details or questions that you guys have. Oh, and someone just asked if you guys will get a recording of this meeting. Yes, we are recording. After the session, we will send a follow-up email with the resources and the recording. Awesome. All right, we do have about 10 more minutes. So if anyone has any additional questions, or if we missed yours, drop it again in the chat and we may be able to squeeze in a few more. Okay, I don't see any additional questions coming in. Sandy, please let me know if I missed anywhere that maybe on your radar.
I don't see any questions come in.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope that we answered a majority of your guys' questions. Again, we're going to follow up with the video recording. We're going to send over some resources for you guys as well. And as a quick reminder, please, if you guys want to have a one-on-one session with us and want to dive into the specifics of your QuickBook integration, click on our calendar link. It's available at no cost to you guys. It comes included in your support. So please use us as a resource for anything that you guys need. And thank you guys all for being here. Bye.